because my work schedule times have adjusted. So that's the reasoning why we're starting a little sooner this week.
Thomas,
Um, Today I decided I'd like to do a bit of a topical one. We're going to talk about how magic introduced
around the corner, the plates and the bowls.
What?
That's where the remote is.
Anyways, we're going to talk about poison as a mechanic and how it was introduced, and it's really funny, I think, how Magic chose to introduce such an interesting alternate win condition. There's not a lot of alternate win conditions in Magic the Gathering. Usually you win by dealing your opponent enough damage to reduce their life to 0. So in a regular
the cupboard
game,
above the microwave.
That's 20 points.
Sorry.
Of damage. In a commander, that's obviously going to be more. You can also win by running your opponent's deck out, and that started to happen fairly early. I think Antiquities was the first card that was put out that was actually designed to enhance that strategy with Millstone. But there have been others for sure. But when it comes to poison, this strategy, this new win condition, wasn't introduced until Legends, 1994, second year of the game.
We'll call you when we're ready for you.
When you're going to introduce a new mechanic nowadays, you usually tie it to a faction or something in the set you're building. You put out a whole bunch of cards at once that make use or reference to the mechanic. You hope for some synergy with a different mechanic. Poison counters did none of that. When it first released in Legends, there were 2 cards. There was a good old Pit Scorpion, and there was Serpent Generator. I don't have a Serpent Generator on me, but it was an artifact much like the Hive. The Hive costs 5, and you can pay 5 and tap it to put a 1/1 flyer Hornet artifact token into play. With the Serpent Generator, you got a 1/1 Serpent token, which, if it dealt damage to your opponent, they got a poison counter as well. All these early creatures, that's how it was keyed. If it damages your opponent, they also get a poison counter. So you're dealing damage and poison counter simultaneously, which is a little bit clunky, especially when the creature is dealing damage at a greater rate that would kill your opponent faster than the actual poison counters would, as comes into play a little later. But even with this very first printed one, the Pit Scorpion, I've only got a Italian one here, so here's the English 4th edition for reference, which I will come back to shortly. If Pit's... are we mirrored again? We're mirrored,
like, I don't know how to fix it.
How the hang do we fix that? Anyways.
You could turn at the camera and just show the cards.
Whoop. Is that better?
Yeah, let's just adjust.
Okay.
Alright, guys.
So, Pit Scorpion deals damage to a player. He or she gets a poison counter. If a player has 10 or more poison counters, he or she loses the game. So 10 poison counters for the KO with poison counters. It's dealing 1 damage because it's a 1/1. So after 10 hits, they'd only be at 10 life, but the poison counters would kill them a little quicker. Fair enough, but you're getting a 1/1 with these extra poison counters for 3. There's only the Pit Scorpion, so you could play 4 copies of it. You're probably only going to get 1 or 2 in a game, and the chance of getting all your damage with those is pretty meager. So this really wasn't, it's a neat little side idea, but it really wasn't going to go anywhere. With the Serpent Generator, you could spit out a bunch of tokens, and they would be a little bit more threatening in that way, but even that is so slow, it really wasn't going to do much. Guys, go to bed or go downstairs.
Or just at least keep it down a little. Go downstairs. Brinley knows where it's at. Yeah. And she's being the boss.
So yeah, 2 cards. One was a common, the Pit Scorpion. The other was a rare. So honestly, and in Legends, you could buy 2 full booster boxes of Legends and only see half the rares. Like, easily. It was a big set. And so yeah, the next set to include a card was in the Dark. The next set that came out in 94. They did include Marsh Viper. So here's a 1/2 creature for 4. Arguably an even worse rate, although it is a slightly bigger creature that can survive combat. Pit Scorpion was very prone to die if it fought anything. Still not great. You're still wanting to use like a Dwarven Soldier or some other way to make this thing unblockable, really. But if Marsh Viper deals damage to the opponent, they get 2 poison counters. So this could kill in only 5 hits. And if you put both together, well, you now had 2 creatures you could play in your deck, aside from the 6-cost Serpent Generator, eventually, maybe. This still wasn't great. But at least now, you could theoretically try and work on a deck. I never saw anyone at this stage who got one working effectively. I'll put it that way. Now, later, this was rebranded to being poisonous as a keyword, and this would be poisonous 1. It gets 1 counter every time it deals combat damage to a player, and this is poisonous 2. It deals 2. That's later wording was, try to rebrand and simplify, I guess, the wording and the mechanic. It didn't really do a great job of it, to be honest. So, you've got 2 sets now,
Isabel,
each with a common creature and one with a rare.
For a bit, please?
So what are you going to do next to try to build this poison mechanic? A lot of people couldn't find even packs of legends, so and dark was more common, but still not the easiest thing to find.
Room.
And at this time, they were getting ready to revamp. Are you kidding me?
The kids left the fridge open.
Close it. They were getting ready to revamp the main base edition.
This is why we do the stream later.
Yes, this is why we usually do the stream later. Are people commenting that?
No,
or
no,
just saying?
We haven't had one comment yet.
Okay, good enough. So they decided to reprint both the Pit Scorpion and the Marsh Viper as commons into 4th edition. So now, in the same set, you could get both of the poison creatures. And they took the Serpent Generator and reprinted that in Chronicles. So this was the most available you would ever have for, thank you, Founder, for these initial batch of poison creatures that were spread over Legends and the Dark. And now they're both put into 4th edition / Chronicles. The 2, again, commons in 4th edition and the Serpent Generator in Chronicles. At the same time they did this, to try to get it more unified, more available, so people could try and get this to work. You know what else they did? Later in the year came out Homelands, and the 4th card ever printed that referenced poison counters. Leeches. Target player loses all poison counters, and it deals 1 damage to that player for each poison counter removed that way. So you could turn it into damage if you wanted to, but basically this was meant to be a counter strategy card. These cards were green and black. This card's white. So, but poison at this time was never threatening enough for leeches to ever be considered to be used. But when you're trying to build a strategy, making a card that counters the strategy in theory, it was just a really weird play. And I don't know why they chose to introduce that at that time. To my knowledge, I haven't been up on all the newer sets, but I don't think they've made any other cards that remove poison counters. They might be cards that just remove counters in general. I've seen a lot more counter manipulation mechanics that have come out lately. But in general, the poison counters were sort of stuck with that. Now, the following year, in the next couple of sets that came out, they did try to push this a little bit further and give you some more creatures with a little bit better options. Because, like I said, these were very generic. You're paying 3 for a 1/1 that dies to anything it fights. You're paying 4 for a 1/2. That's really not any better. But they didn't do anything with it in Ice Age that I can recall. But in Alliances, they got Swamp Mosquito. There's actually 2 different arts, same cards. You can still only have 4 of them. But It's another creature that gives poison counters, and they improved it in 2 ways. Although arguably they made it worse in one. It's a 0/1 now, so it doesn't deal any damage. But then again, if you're actually trying to play poison, you don't really care about dealing damage as much as giving poison counters. Hi, Ryan. Thanks for coming. So yeah, good old swamp mosquito, everybody's favorite critter, right? Everybody loves mosquitoes. I do like this art a little bit better, although this one does have more personality, I would say, if you can call a mosquito with personality.
Mosquitoes are horrible, but I'd rather have that than leeches.
Anyway, so it's got flying.
Mom.
So, first of all,
Mom.
Ezra.
Water.
Thomas, can you get Ezra some water, please? And put it in a cup with a lid.
If you compare it to the pit scorpion here, it costs 1 less. So you're paying 2 for your creature instead of 3. And it has flying. So it's evasive. It can go over top of most of your opponent's creatures and shouldn't end up in combat as often. And if Swamp Mosquito attacks and is not blocked, defending player gets a poison counter. If a player has 10 or more poison counters, he or she loses the game. Again, they keep referencing that, just that's how poison counters work, but they have to put the reminder text on all the creatures that have it in this early stage because there are so few of them. But the fact that attacks and is not blocked, and it's not keyed to dealing damage, means this is very distinct. And things like, a Maze of Ith, which can stop and untap an attacking creature and it deals no damage. Well, it still attacked and wasn't blocked, so you still get the poison counter. It's a subtle difference, but it does definitely make a difference in some situations. So it's easier to get the poison counters through with these on 2 levels, 1 that, and 2 the fact that it flies. Also, being a cheaper creature helps a lot.
You have a question at the bottom.
So that was a decent addition as far as it went. What about the rat cards that deal poison? I don't remember if all say it. Rats that were poisonous, I don't remember coming out until much later. I remember some rats with Infect, but Infect is a much more recent ability that includes poison. So we're talking about how it was first introduced at this point. We will get to Infect in a little bit here. The next set that came out after Alliances that featured poison counter creatures was Mirage. And this was the most common creature from that actually saw use. You also had, I believe it was called Crypt Cobra. Problem with Crypt Cobra was that it cost 4 again, and it was a 3/3. So it was a hill giant that, if it dealt damage to your opponent, gave them a poison counter. So the rate on Crypt Cobra is you're dealing 3 damage, 1 poison counter. Attack the next turn. Deal 6 damage. You get another poison counter. You will kill them with damage before you deal enough damage with poison. Now, you could argue it's to supplement these other ones, so hopefully you're ahead already on that. But again, it's the clunkiness of dealing damage and poison, and the ratio on that one's just not as good. That said, 3/3 was definitely an upgrade in terms of the body over a 2/1 and could survive combat better. However, this dealt twice as many poison counters if you were trying to make it unblockable to get through anyway. So even then, I would argue, if I'm playing a poison deck, I'd rather be running Marsh Vipers. Gotcha. Yeah, I think Woe was the most recent with rats, too. Oh, sorry, WOE.
Probably some.
It's an abbreviation for a set or something, I think.
I don't know.
Anyways. But yeah, Mirage, Sabertooth Cobra, I remember these did
Wilds
get
of
Eldraine. Yeah, that's a set I didn't get. That's a much more recent one. We'll get into that in a little bit. Not Wilds of Eldraine. I don't have much to say about that, but we'll get into Infect mechanics anyway. Sabertooth Cobra did see play. I remember my brother using these particularly. And again, if you had other poison cutters in your deck, creatures in your deck, so much the better. But this one was, it actually, I think, took some inspiration from Naf's Asp from Arabian Nights as well, which was a 1/1 for 1. This is a 2/2 for 3. So again, comparing the body to any of these previous ones, 2/2 better than 1/1, better than 1/2. The casting cost 2/2 for 3 was, sort of on par for what you would expect for a creature at the time. These were below that, so that's an improvement. If it deals combat damage to a player, he or she gets a poison counter, standard, just like the Pit Scorpion, and during that player's next upkeep, he or she gets another poison counter unless he or she pays 2 before then to prevent this effect. So, the Nassas was a 1/1 for 1 that obviously in combat would deal its 1 damage, and then if it damaged a player, they would have to pay 1 during their upkeep to prevent them from taking a second damage, which could be annoying. This is doing the same thing except with getting a second poison counter on top of your 2 damage and your first poison counter. So this could be dealing 2 poison counters a turn if they don't have the mana they want to give. Now, obviously, if they're getting close to 10, they're going to be more likely to pay it. But at first, you might get in a hit or two where it's dealing the extra poison counters and accelerating your plan quite a bit. So this was, I think, arguably even better than the Marsh Viper. Volcanic Geyser always like this card. Volcanic Geyser, that was just a creature removal burn spell, wasn't it? Lots of these cards were magnets for creature removal. If you had a little removal spell, you wouldn't want any of these chipping at you for too long. It would be obviously an easy way to get rid of. But now by this point, you've got your 2-drop, you've got 2 different 3-drops, you've got a 4-drop, you've got still in just red, black, green, and you've got enough cards that you could actually build a poison deck. You wouldn't want to be using the leeches, but if you could work in some way to make your creatures less blockable, if you could do some tricks to tap down your opponent's stuff or whatever too, there was ways to do it. And now at this point, this is when I started to see people actually making a go, seriously, of making a poison deck. Were they good? Generally, no. No, they weren't. But there was enough material available to actually give it a go and give it a try. I think there was an assassin that came out in Visions, but basically Poison petered out at this point. There wasn't that many cards available. Years later, during Time Spiral block, that's when they formalized the wording as Poisonous 1, Poisonous 2. And the most famous creature that had that was the Virulent Sliver. Now keep in mind, this came out in the 3rd wave of Slivers. So there'd already been the 1st wave in Tempest and Stronghold. There'd already been the 2nd wave in Legions block. In Legions. Only one in the block further. I think the Sliver Overlord was in Scourge. I don't think there was much else in the block, but most of them were in Legions for wave 2. And then Time Spiral block, every set in the block had Slivers, and Future Sight here was the last set in the block when Virulent Sliver came out. And a 1/1 for 1 was very interesting, because you look at all the other poison counter creatures that had been released to this point. The cheapest one cost 2, most of them quite a bit more. So this was efficient, and the way they redefined Poisonous, it could stack. So if you had 2 of these out, they would each have Poisonous 2. Also, being the 3rd wave of Slivers, there were a fair number of 1-cost Slivers available. So you might have Metallic Slivers from Tempest. You might have, what was it called? Plated Sliver from Legions, if you're in white, which is a little bit odd here, granted. But there's also ways to make Slivers unblockable quite easily. There are several ways to do that. So, all of a sudden, Poison became more relevant than it had even at its height here with this 1 card alone. Because all of a sudden you could easily throw in a poison strategy to your Sliver deck. This was a bit of a game changer, and that was the high point of old poison, believe it or not. That was the best it ever got, was with this one card and the existing lots of slivers, which we've talked about before. But you could do quite a bit with it with this one card. And this card, even then, this was a throwback even then, because look at this. This was printed in 2007. That's a decade after the last of these were coming out. I think the one in Visions came out in 97. So this was 96, this was 96. This is a decade after Visions. So even there, this was something looking at, an interesting mechanic from the past that hadn't been useful in a decade. And then that was it again. It basically fell off the cliff and didn't resurface until they went back to Mirrodin. And you had Scars of Mirrodin. And you had Mirrodin Besieged. And that sort of block where slivers started to become relevant again. I'll try and keep these in chronological order for what little it's worth. And there, in fact, actually, when it reemerged, was all over the place by the end of that block. You could make a blue and white Infect deck and try and kill people with poison. It wasn't nearly as restricted to black and green, although those were still the colors where it stood out the most and where I think it did the most. So you've got things like the Plague Stinger. Flying, Infect, same rate as the Swamp Mosquito, except aside from just being evasive by flying and dealing damage in poison counters, it also would be annoying to block because Infect matters if they fight creatures. These were no longer just little small creatures that could be jump blocked and killed easily. Yes, it was a little small creature that could be jump blocked and killed, but it would leave lingering results. The Infect mechanic of dealing damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters means they would be permanently shrunken. And in the case of something with First Strike, this would also reduce the damage that was dealt back if they were dealing at regular speed. So this one came out a little bit later. Again, these were 2010, 2011. I should have looked up the names of these sets beforehand, but I think this was Scars of Mirrodin and Mirrodin Besieged, if I'm remembering that correctly. And then New Phyrexian stuff might have had something a little later too. But Infect was getting a lot of cards, a lot of support. They did what they should have done with poison in the first place, in my opinion. But to be honest, a lot of cards and abilities were sort of leaked in over time. The cannot be targeted by spells type abilities. You first saw, I think, with Lurker in the Dark, became popular with Autumn Willow in Homelands. I didn't even get a keyword until, when did that get a keyword? Much later. Anyway, but things like that. Anti-cards, you'd usually get 1 or 2 a set. Was a common way of doing things. You got big legendary nasties like Skithrix here, the Blight Dragon, still one of my favorites. And again, it's got the old Singir Vampire stats. 5 for a 4/4 flyer. It's got Infect, so those nasty counters. It can gain haste until end of turn, so if you draw it later and you've got the 6th mana, it can take someone by surprise, and it can regenerate, so it's even if it's in a losing battle, it'll stick around and do more damage. Good old Dark Rituals to bring it out quicker. Sure thing. Like I say, most of my deck building, by the way, if you're curious as to why I'm playing revised Dark Rituals with cards this new, I tend to just play vintage rules, basically. So I can use whatever, and if it's restricted, just keep it to 1. But, and then, obviously I'm not going to be throwing a Black Lotus into every deck because I don't have it. how rare cards are actually impacts your deck building that way. And a lot of people seem to have forgotten that that's how it's supposed to regulate. But yeah, you've got Corpse Cur here, which is an artifact. You could throw in any color. 2/2 for 4 with Infect. And when it enters the battlefield, you may return a creature card with Infect from your graveyard to your hand. So you get these extra come into play abilities starting to come there now. A lot of these cards, like here's another one as an artifact. 2/1. 1/1 for 2 with Infect. And when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. So you get the extra little counters being put around. And this was the same set that came out with what's it called? Why am I forgetting this now? Contagion? No, Proliferate. Contagion Engine, Contagion Brooch, or something. That was the name of the cards. But Proliferate was the effect, which then let you put extra counters of a type. So if you got a -1/-1 counter on something, you could multiply that. If you got a poison counter on someone, you could multiply that. So you had synergistic mechanics as well as lots of cards with the abilities. This worked a lot better, and I've got a couple of decks that I built out of this sort of time period here, which we can try playing against each other if Thomas or Mama Spocat would like to play.
Thomas has the remote. Go ask him where it is.
So, but a lot of these infect creatures at this time period were things like insects or rats, and got to dig into Swarmyard here from Time Spiral, which conveniently has the old elephant graveyard ability, except instead of for elephants and mammoths, it's spiders, squirrels, insects, and rats. So a lot of the poison type creatures, Swarmyard is a nice little addition to any sort of deck you're building from that era, I find. Just a little tip there. Some removal from the period. This is a double-edged one that can be handy for you. Target player draws 3 cards, loses 3 life, and gets 3 poison counters. So just put poison counters on your opponent if you need it to get him to the point where you can try and finish him off quickly.
Where'd you put the remote, Thomas?
If you're really in a bind and your opponent's not in danger of poisoning you, you could always give yourself some poison counters to draw some cards. That's totally doable with this as well. Here's the Infect Lord, so to speak. You get a 3/2 body for 4, much better than the 0/2 from the Marsh Viper. Infect, so it deals its damage in the form of poison counters. So this, if it hits your opponent, will deal them 3, even more than the Marsh Viper, poison counters. And other creatures you control with Infect get +1/+1, so it makes them all bigger, which is nice. Whenever you cast a creature spell with Infect, target player gets a poison counter. So again, just direct putting poison counters on people. The rats were good for that too. When it enters the battlefield, each player gets a poison counter, so it puts it on you and your opponent. Is this the one that was being mentioned before? It might have seen a reprint in Wilds of Eldraine, I'm not sure. Ichor rats, anyway. 2/1 Infect for 3. Again, not the biggest body, but the extra poison counter when it comes into play certainly can help. Again, a little Plague Stinger. We're going to see a lot of reprints from this point, I think. Virulent Wound. Yeah, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. When that creature is put into a graveyard this turn, its controller gets a poison counter. So kill something small and give them a poison counter. Or finish off something big that took some damage and give them a poison counter. Or just let it sit there and eventually they might get a poison counter. You know, there's that too, just be threatening. Put in some decent lands in this deck, by the look of it. Anyway, there's another Skithrix. What else we got in here? Yeah, this was just basically a black beatdown type deck. Different Infect Rat here. 2/2 for 3. And whenever it attacks, if defending player is poisoned, which means they have at least 1 poison counter on them, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn, so it can become a 3/3. Not necessarily the best, but it works well with those other rats. And again, this guy, I mentioned how First Strike can work with a Infect to help you come out on top in battles quite nicely, but also having protection from 2 colors. At the time, this was a great sort of rate for a 2/2 for 3 with multiple abilities like this. First strike, protection from 2 colors, and infect. Quite nice. There's the millipede again. So yeah, you get the basic idea. I think we've covered everything in this deck pretty much. Oh, here's one new one. Phyrexian Vat Mother. This was a newer rare by the look of it, I think. Yeah. Or is that an uncommon? I don't know. I'm a little... Oh, that's gold. That's gold. Anyway, 4 for a 4/5. In fact, at the beginning of your upkeep, you get a poison counter. So this was a bigger body, sort of a 4/5 for 4 used to be sort of Earn-Handed Djinn type gold standard stats in a way, but yeah, this one's got the downside of that's probably why there's not as many in here. I would rather get one of these for my 4-drop typically. Yeah, so there's a little black deck I put together. Like I said, there are cards in every color with Infect, I think. Although I don't remember any red ones off the top of my head. I'm sure there were, because I seem to recall it being in pretty much every color. But here's another green deck that I put together, and this one's got a different strategy. That one's just infect creatures, infect synergy, infect, you know. I don't have to put any proliferate in this deck, which is surprised me a bit. I thought there was, but there's enough synergies there that I think it would work fine.
Was the dog in?
You want to try a game soon, Thomas? Here we got Glistener Elf. Now, from this set, and this was new Phyrexia, I believe, which came out a little bit after Mirrodin Besieged. This was after the Phyrexians had basically wrecked Mirrodin and taken it over. Up till now, all the Infect creatures had only cost 2 or more. This was the first 1-cost Infect creature they made. The good old Glistener Elf. And pretty basic, 1/1 Infect, but could be effective. And what this deck was designed to do is just get a hit through. You know, most people, yeah, I can take a poison or 2. That's fine. But this one was nasty surprise. Just get a hit through and then make it big. And all of a sudden, they're in big trouble. Invigorate, I found, worked great with Infect. If you control a forest, you may have an opponent gain 3 life instead of paying Invigorate's mana cost. Now, ordinarily, that's working against you because, hey, you know, if you're using this to pump a creature that's hitting your opponent, okay, they gain 3 life, they take 5 more damage. You're only +2, and it costs you, you know, it's a little buff, but it's not that big. But for +4/+4 until end of turn. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up with another. That's a big boost if your opponent's gaining life and you don't care about life because you're trying to kill them with the poison. All of a sudden, this little elf deals them 5 damage. They're at 23 life, sure, but they're already half dead on poison counters. That makes a big difference. Blight Mamba only costs 2 and can regenerate. So again, even if it's on losing combat, handy to keep it around. Things like Giant Growth, more surprise. Vines of Vastwood. Target creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponent controls. So if your opponent's trying to lightning bolt it or trying to, you know, terminate it or any sort of removal spell like that that's targeted, then this stops that and keeps your creature alive. And then if you have enough to kick it on top of that while you're attacking, say, +4/+4 until end turn. So another huge boost to getting up to your 10 poison counters. More Vines of Vastwood, more Invigorate, more Glistener Elves. Here's our Rot Wolf. Whenever a creature dealt damage by Rot Wolf this turn is put into a graveyard, you may draw a card. So if this kills something, you could draw something. Not going to happen all the time with a 2/2 for 3, but there's another 2/2 for 3 Infect, and when it enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact. So here was your old upgraded Uktabi Orangutan. It did take an extra green, but in a mono deck, that's not a problem. And it's a 2/2 Infect, which is a little bit better than just a plain 2/2 for combat purposes. Especially when you're trying to kill someone with poison. Cyst Bear was a 2/3 for 3. Not a little bit better for combat, I suppose, than a Raw Wolf, but basically just another body. Mutagenic Growth, another way you can pump a creature for very little mana and try and get a surprise drop on. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Good old Phyrexian mana. You can pay life instead of the mana. Another snake. Blight Widow, in case you're getting bogged out or need to worry about flyers, it's basically the good old giant spider, except with Infect. So, again, I think that's an improvement. So I threw in a couple. Groundswell. 1 green. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Landfall. If you had a land enter the battlefield, then the creature gets +4/+4 instead for 1 mana. So, either better or worse than Giant Growth, depending on whether you played a land, but still, nice boost. Wild Might. This one can be wild. 2 mana. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. That creature gets an additional +4/+4, so +5/+5 for 2 until end of turn, unless any player pays 2. Now, if you're playing a duel against someone and they just don't happen to have the 2 mana open because they were tapping out to curve out or whatever, this can be a huge buff if you can get a creature in. Or even if it's a creature combat you're trying to turn around. That works too. Yeah, I've talked before about why I include snow-covered lands in so many of my decks. Not as a full deck, obviously, but just as a, I'd like to have at least a couple, maybe up to a third of the deck as being snow-covered lands. Protects against certain strategies. And there's a couple more Blight Widows, lots more forests. Pendelhaven, why not? So it's not a forest, but all those little 1/1 elves and mambas, all of a sudden you can just tap one of your lands to give it a little buff. Nice, repeatable way of doing things, in my opinion. Good addition for this particular deck, I find. Anyhow, so this is most sort of Infect Surprise deck, if you want to call it that. A little bit trickier, but sometimes I find it just generally more effective if your opponent isn't sure what you're up to. Now, speaking of not being sure what you're up to, Infect can be a great way to splash into other decks. Here's a black commander deck. I've got a copy of Skithrix in here. I usually don't run this as my commander, but I can. If I want them to see it coming. Ooh, there's poison. There's not many Infect cards in this deck. It's not built around it. So usually I find it's better to just run him as a regular card in the deck. Let another legendary creature be the whatever you like, be the commander instead. And then as a surprise, you can drop this out with haste and get in to do some damage. Another nice one for surprise potential, especially in commander, I find. Where is it? Tainted Strike, nice little common. 1 mana, target creature gets +1 attack and gains Infect until end of turn. So if you can sneak a creature through and it's already a decent sized creature, all of a sudden you just need to get that 10 poison counter. You could use this with Hatred or Hell from Beyond or any number of tricks that boost the power if it's a small creature that was just evasive. And you can get some surprise KOs with this thing too. That's another one I'd recommend for nice little surprise in a commander game or something. In a more competitive format, again, this is sort of just a vintage type deck that I've already pulled a lot of the better cards out of, so it's not really fully assembled at the moment. I'll put it that way. A lot of the key cards are out, but here's Time Vault's best friend, in my opinion. I mean, Voltaic Key is nice too, I'll give it that, but this one can tutor for it and do the same effect. Here's this guy. I used to love using Tinker with Dark Steel Colossus. It just gave a real nice big body, influence on the board, could KO in 2 hits. When this came out, it was an instant upgrade, basically. Same sort of effect and everything except the infectability made it more lethal to creatures that would block that wanted to regenerate or something. And the fact that it has infect means this thing can kill in 1 hit instead of 2 at the size it's at, generally speaking. So this became probably my new favorite Tinker target at that time. And I still see quite a bit of use with any deck like this, which just uses a bunch of old goody favorites and cards like Tinker. Do I have a Tinker handy here to show? Just in case people aren't familiar with it. Or did I pull it out of here for some stupid reason? It's not a card that I should pull out of here because it's not that, like, it's an uncommon. Oh, here we go. It's not a huge value card by any means, but it is pretty strong at times. So Tinker, pay 3. Anytime you may that you play Tinker, sacrifice an artifact, search your library for an artifact card, and put that artifact into play, shuffle your library afterwards. So just go get the one you want. And, that works really nice with something like a Soul Ring or Mana Mox or something like Mana Crypt would work really well with it too. But yeah, that Blightsteel Colossus is probably the single card for Infect that I've used the most often. But Infect decks certainly got a big boost for the poison mechanic as a whole around this time period. And that's when, more or less, I built these. Yeah, I guess you'd say New Phyrexia, just Scars of Mirrodin is when I started, as they started to come out, I started to think about it more and more. And I just liked the mechanics, so like I said, I worked on a blue and white poison deck. It just didn't seem as interesting to me. So these are the 2 that I currently have available. I could put Berserks in this. I've thought about it, but generally speaking, I like having those in more general use decks. And usually it's not needed. But it certainly can be a strong addition because it gives trample and can get through blockers if people are being wary on you in that way. Thomas, where are you? Want to try a game or 2?
Sure.
So, I figure we can try these against each other first of all. That'll be probably the easiest thing.
And we can move this way. We have 1 viewer. Hello, 1 viewer. Oh, we're back up to 4 now.
Thanks for coming. But yeah. I like the old classic poison cards, but they just aren't as good.
I think we need a new tripod.
Outside of Virulent Sliver, like I say, you build a Sliver deck around this thing, that can be quite a nasty surprise to pull out, for sure. But, so, Thomas, would you like sort of a black deck with bugs and rats and all kinds of poisonous nasties that's just built around, trying to poison your opponent with building up a creature force that's icky like that? Or would you rather use the sort of surprise deck, a little bit smaller creatures, but you're just trying to get in 1 hit and then pump that creature for the kill? Which deck would you rather try out?
Well, which one is which?
The green one is the tricky one that just tries to sneak in a hit and then make it a really big hit. But the black deck has more sort of just creatures that are meant to build up and build a stronger board presence. They're
I'll go with the green one.
They're both based around trying to kill your opponent with poison. So there you go. Give it a shuffle. Where's the dice?
I don't know.
I'm gonna grab that little box behind me, up on the top of the. I can grab it. This is going to be interesting.
So which?
because,
Sorry, I missed which deck Thomas picked.
Thomas picked the green. So that's one that requires a little more strategy.
Okay.
Cards in the black one just sort of do their thing and add up together well. But
I don't love watching how he's shoveling that. It's very cringy for me to see him shovel.
some dice for life points. Not that life points I think are going to matter in this game. Here, have an extra dice to keep track of your poison counters. You can set that off to the side for now. 'Cause we start with 0. If you get 10 poison counters on your opponent, you win. Thomas,
Ooh.
put the tablet away.
Yeah, you don't need that. Not for this. Right now, your whole objective is to defeat your father in battle.
All right, so we shuffled.
You do it more than I
Ordinarily,
can,
you
so.
can cut your opponent's deck to make sure they didn't stack it just the way they want. But so we each draw 7. Let's roll to see who starts. I got a 2. You got a 1. I'll start.
I think this kind of got a bit missed.
Oh.
All right.
There's the 2.
So what do I have to work with? That's not quite ideal, but it's not a disaster. I'll play a land and let you go. You got forest. Got anything that costs 1 as a creature?
Oh,
Basically, what that deck really wants to play on turn 1, if you have it, is a Glistener Elf.
Excuse me.
I have an instant that can.
Well, I think most of the instants in that deck are geared to use with your creatures. So until you have a creature, probably best to save it.
Yeah.
Yeah. My turn?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. I'll draw. Play a second land. And
That's the
Plague
dog
Stinger.
jerky.
Okay,
No, you're not eating the dog's jerky. Hi, Trainer Glenn.
In case anybody's wondering, we were gifted this.
Did you try
recently.
it
Like
the other day?
Yeah, in the stream I tried it.
That's a dog treat.
They're dog treat jerky. I mean, it is beef jerky.
Yeah.
It's beef with some sugar and salt.
It's just probably
it wouldn't
not.
hurt you.
Yeah.
It's not really the tastiest jerky,
I
but it's not horrible.
think it's just not prepared the
It's
way
certainly
people eat it.
no.
That's all.
It's a little different and different ratios.
I better taste good. I better taste good, or it better taste good.
it tastes better than milk bones. I'll tell you that.
He just retracted that. Probably meant to say it or something.
In any case, I brought out my Plague Stinger. It's your turn, Thomas. Boy, this mat probably isn't the best for a black deck, is it?
I bet it's pretty good, says Trainer Glenn.
My cards are camouflaged.
I can't remember, Thomas. Did it taste pretty good?
It tasted fine.
It's not bad, and Salem sure likes it.
Oh, Salem loves it. Mm.
So you got your second forest.
I can get out my first creature.
Ooh, Blight Mamba. Okay. My turn?
Yep.
Interesting. All right. Hmm. Alright, so I'm going to pretend I don't know exactly how that deck is intended to run. And I'm going to play an Ichor Rat. When it's a 2/1 with Infect again. All creatures in both of these decks, I think, have Infect, by the way. When Ichor Rat enters the battlefield, each player gets a poison counter. So I get a poison counter, and you get a poison counter. So your poison count's up to 1, and so's mine. I'm going to then attack you with the Plague Stinger.
Could I block up this?
This flies, so no.
But something that makes this... that would make this make more sense to be able to block it would be... Well, on the picture it shows it on a tree.
Right. But my stinger, I guess, is flying up above the trees, like not through the trees, so. I know that some spiders and things have reach that, it shows pictures in the trees, but it's not always the case, and that one doesn't, and I don't think there's any instance in there that give reach. So, I'm pretty sure you have no way of stopping this. So, this will hit you for 1 more poison counter. And then it's your turn.
Well, okay, now I have options. But I'm gonna go for this one.
Okay. So you're tapping all 3 to play the Cyst Bear?
Yep.
Or Bearer, I should say.
I was about to say, it doesn't look like a bear.
Yeah.
But it does have 4 legs in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
So you can only barely see.
So you content to wait, or are you going to attack me with the Momba?
Wait. Something I just realized is you could probably just block it, so...
I could block it with my Ichor Rat, yes.
Are you trying to make him attack before he should?
Trying to make him think and make decisions.
I'm going to wait until I have more things out.
Fair enough. I'll untap. Draw a card. Ooh. This is extra dangerous in this matchup, and I do have other options. So I don't think I'll be playing this immediately. I will, however, drop a Septic Rats. Get another body on the board.
Can a flying creature block a non-flying creature?
Yes, flying creatures can block non-flyers. I will then attack you with the Plague Stinger.
Which adds an our poison counter.
Yeah, I'll leave my rats up for defense. So you're up to 3 poison.
Does this deck even have any flyers or anything with reach?
It does have some spiders with reach, but they cost 4. They're the most expensive creatures in that deck, I think. Most creatures in that deck cost only 2 or 3. That deck is trying to get a bunch of small creatures out and attack and try and sneak one through. That's basically what that deck's trying to do.
So, if just one of these creatures gets a hit off, does that mean that you lose, or
It depends what you have to play to take advantage of that. That deck should have a bunch of spells in it that can pump creatures at instant speed. So if I take a creature that would normally deal me 1 poison counter, and you can all of a sudden pump it up so that it's dealing me 10, right? Then that would kill me. That's sort of the idea.
so if I were to have like more creatures out and attack,
Then it's easier to get one through. But
would I be able to like use an instant while I'm attacking?
yes, instants can be played at any time, including during combat. In any case, I
So
attacked you.
Even when you're
it's your turn.
even when you're picking which ones to block.
You can play them before or after blockers are announced. Yeah. So you can wait to see what I block with, and then choose what you want to pump. That's how those work.
So
They're
I
very
could-
handy in
so-
general, but especially in that deck.
So I could basically use the instance on a creature that I know is going to get through.
Yes. Or you could use it in some instances to keep one of your creatures alive, right? If it's in a fight that it's going to lose and get killed, you could pump it up to keep it alive in some cases. That won't work as well in this matchup because my creatures also have Infect, and so they deal in -1/-1 counters. So after the buff wears off, it would still have the -1/-1 counters, which could probably kill it. So, like I said, this isn't probably the best matchup for interest's sake for how these decks are supposed to work, because they're both having to deal with the opponent also being Infect, but we'll give it a go and see how it goes. So anyways, it's your turn, Thomas. Did you untap? Or have you started your turn at all? So you're sitting at 3 poison, and I'm sitting at 1 at present. Believe. Am I thinking there was either a blue creature that was just, I think it was untargetable and unblockable,
I don't know.
but there was a way to give it infect, or else it was infect and unblockable. But it was a blue one, and there was some tricks you could do with that. I forget which way it was exactly. No, it's been a while. Oh yeah. But I remember I had a lot of fun with Scars of Mirrodin and this block sort of here. It was an interesting time period in the story of the game and the mechanics of the game, and I did quite enjoy it and get into it quite a bit at that point. Unfortunately, shortly after Innistrad and Return to Ravnica, and my attention started petering off, just because the changes that I saw in the game. And when I came back with Lord of the Rings, I found more and more of those changes had been sort of entrenched. Still got largely the same trends going on, but further down the road. Honestly, I'm not a fan of finding, so many multicolors in every single set nowadays. I think that it should be like the deck's built around the color pie. The color pie should still be its primary identities.
Whose turn is it?
It's Thomas's. He played a Rot Wolf, and now he's deciding what to do, I guess, because he hasn't let me go yet. So.
Your turn.
Okay. Just to the land. Now, do I want to be very aggressive? Well, yes, I want to, but is it a good idea?
If you were to attack if you were to attack with the rats, I could probably block it.
Yeah, you've got creatures up to block as well. But I'll bring out a Hand of the Praetors. 3/2. Other creatures you control with Infect get +1/+1. And whenever you cast a creature spell with Infect, target player gets a poison counter. So all my other creatures that I control with Infect, which is all of them, get +1/+1.
Is there a space themed magic set?
Sort of. They did a space theme, I think, with Infinity, which was the latest unset. But that's the unsets are sort of joke sets, and they're not really meant to be tournament legal for the most part. There's a lot of joke cards in them. So that's the closest thing I can think of to a space set.
Like, what kind of cards are in there?
I don't know. I never got any of that set. I got the first like Unglued and a little bit of Unhinged, but after those first two unsets, I really lost interest in them and haven't gotten any since. So I don't know what's in this most recent one all that much, but I've seen some of the art and I'm pretty sure it's sort of space themed. So you've got a poison counter, and I've got this. If I attack with this, it'll be a 4/4, which is pretty threatening. I think it's going to force you into blocking. It might not.
Exciting.
So yeah, I'm going to risk it. I'm going to attack with the Septic Rats and the Plague Stinger. Core Rats too? I don't know. I'll just attack with these two.
I guess I'd have to block that with these two.
Not necessarily. You can if you want to. That will be enough damage to it that it will die at end of turn.
But I can't really block that one.
You can't block this one, so it's going to give you 2 poison either way. You want to double block the Septic Rats, you said?
That one's...
It's 4/4. Because it gets +1/+1 when you're poisoned and it attacks, and it gets +1/+1 from this. Just like this gets +1/+1, which is why it deals 2 now. So this deals 4 and takes 4 to kill. Except once it's no longer attacking, then it will be down to a 3/3. So if you wanted to do what you just said, it would be enough to kill it. Otherwise, it'll just shrink it.
Oh.
But if you block
it.
Okay. So I'll deal 1 to the Mamba and 3 to the Cyst Bear. So both of yours are going to die as well. And this is going to die after combat is over. And you
have it like this. Right?
Yeah, just beside your deck. And then this one deals you 2 more poison counters. All right, your turn.
Oh, I forgot to add the tags to the stream. I guess I can do that now. That might be why there's not too many people finding the stream.
Who knows?
I'm basically
Could be the different time. Could be.
Yeah.
Oh, there's that
Oops, sorry.
Glistener Elf that you should have had turn 1. Yeah, that deck, a quick start is so important for that deck, especially if people know what you're doing. But
I don't really want to put poison on as a tag, do I? Probably not the best thing. What was the other thing?
Infect.
I'm not sure that's any better. Infect deck? I don't know. I'm not sure. Don't remember what else I had on there.
So are you going to attack with your wolf, or are you going to keep it back on defense?
Are you going to block it if I use it to attack?
I would expect so, yeah.
Oh, look, we're at. We gained a few subscribers since we started the stream.
Nice.
I guess I'll.
Thank you to anyone who subscribed. That's very helpful.
I guess I'll just wait.
Okay.
And also, how many poison counters until?
If you get 10 poison counters on you, that's the end of the game.
We're 33 subscribers from 2000.
So I'm going to play another land. I'll tap 4. I'll play a second Hand of the Praetor. So that gives all my creatures another +1/+1. And whenever you cast a creature spell with Infect, target player gets a poison counter. So you get a poison counter because I just played another Infect card. And now I will attack with the Stinger for 3 poison counters and the Ichor Rat for 4.
Did Thomas completely miss what you just did?
Actually, I want to really push you to the brink here. I probably attack with the Hand of the Praetor as well. So this basically forces your hand. You can't block this one. It's going to give you 3 more poison counters. If you get any more poison counters, you're done. Either of these would kill you. So they both need to be blocked.
So I guess I'll try to block those then.
Alright. So which are you going to block with which? Keep in mind that this one gets +2/+2 from +1/+1 from each, and this one gets +1/+1 from this one. So this is a 4/3, and this is also a 4/3.
I guess I'll use this to block that one, this one to block that one, I guess.
Okay. Now, as it stands, your creatures are going to die, and mine are going to live. You're getting down to the end where you really want to keep those alive if you can. I don't think you can with any of the tricks in that deck, but you could kill some of my creatures using tricks in that deck, and you've got 2 green open. So do you have anything that you want to pump those creatures with to kill my creatures? I would say it's especially important in this case. Okay, so those each give +2/+2.
I guess I'll
Yeah. 1 on each.
Yeah, I'm putting 1 on each.
Okay, that will be enough to kill both my creatures. So both of these are going to die. Both of yours are going to die because the counters. See, that would make them big enough to survive normal combat, but because Infect deals -1/-1 counters after the combat's over, and those go away, they'll be back to the regular size, and the poison counters will finish them off. Now, your Rot Wolf has an ability for when it kills things, right?
Whenever a creature dealt damage by Wolf this turn is put into a graveyard, you may draw a card.
Right, so I killed this guy, so you get to draw a card. And now it's your turn. You get to draw another card and untap. And you forgot to take your 3 poison counters from the Plague Stinger, by the way. So you're at 9. One more will do it.
Well, I only got instants left right now.
Well, that's unfortunate. That deck does sometimes run into that problem because it needs a lot of instants to try to force things through. So that's sort of how it's constructed. So basically, you're done because as soon as you let me go, I'm going to attack, right? And you've got nothing to stop.
Yeah, so
I guess that's game. You want to try another or switch decks or something?
I think I'm good for tonight.
Okay, well, thanks for coming and playing one. Did you want to try one? Try a round?
I don't think so. Not tonight.
That's unfortunate.
I'm sorry.
That green deck never really got to show what it can do. But basically, it's great at taking people by surprise if you get it going. This isn't really the best deck matchup to show off Infect because both decks run into complications. You know, they're meant to use the new mechanic that came out, this Infect way of dealing combat, to take advantage of decks that don't work that way. Decks that do work that way, well, it's not as big of an issue then, is it?
Oh, excuse me.
Holy cow, all the hand of the praetors are one side of the deck.
All right. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. I'm sorry that I'm doing this for whoever's watching.
Does anyone have favorite lands that they just really like?
Oh, careful.
Foil lands used to be something special, so I used to keep them. Now they're a dime a dozen. Every deck comes with multiple.
I like the snow-covered lands.
I like,
Especially the full art picture ones, like the... You know which ones I mean.
kind of. My favorite lands usually are the ones that actually you can read, and it says tap to add and all that. I like the art on this one here from Mirage. It's rather nice with the moons for a swamp. I mean, as nice as a swamp can be, I suppose. But I like some of the old style. Here's an Ice Age one. It looks somewhat realistic with the logs sticking out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another one that's got more of a realistic look to it. It doesn't have the text, but it is a foil, so that's why I kept it. Another one of the Ice Age sort of more realistic looking swamps, in my opinion.
So I don't know if we're going to be doing any pop-up streams over the next few days with you working.
Yeah, when I'm working, it makes it a lot harder. We didn't get that 3D puzzle finished. If any of you were watching over the weekend,
I did mention to Founder early on that we were going to get back at it when you're off.
We will get back at it, but it's going to probably get put away for a week or so while I'm at work. And
I got to clean
it out again later.
Space for it.
Yeah.
But
this one's neat with the sort of flower
thing. Ooh, that is
it.
nice. I like it.
Still got the misty, swampy look, but not sure what type of flower that is.
It's like an...
There's an Urza Saga. They were
an orchid or something?
A little tech. Yeah, maybe.
Or a lily?
Might be. Let's try and distribute some of this. I got some big pockets with not much land here.
I don't know.
Anyway. Oh, there's multiple lands there in a row, so I can break that up a little.
Could be fun to, I don't know. How many Ice Age pre-constructed decks do you have? Or do you only have one of each?
What do you mean pre-constructed?
Like the decks.
Oh, the starter decks?
Yeah.
Those are random cards. That was just how you bought
Oh,
back
okay.
then. They're not pre-constructed at all.
Oh, okay.
But I've got 2 Ice Age starter decks. Still sealed.
Was there something that you have multiples of?
I have some pre-constructed Time Spiral decks.
Oh, okay. Time Spiral.
Yeah. A little bit different. But... But yeah, all these tricks, like I say, Invigorate's probably my favorite one, just because you can play it for free by giving your opponent life, which is completely irrelevant when you're trying to kill them with poison counters. But a lot of these other tricky sort of ones that can be played for free or have extra effects, or the standard giant growth too. And like I said, you could easily put Berserk in this deck. All of a sudden, these little, 1/2 or 1/1 and 2/2 creatures become a lot more threatening when all of a sudden you can swell them to deal that much poison at once.
I'm gonna have to find out. I don't know what we should do on Thursday.
And again, Blight Widow, this is sort of just, it's really a bit slow of a creature. It's nice to have something that I can play if I'm getting stalled out and need a defense. But I just like the old giant spider, and this is a similar version for me. So.
Oh my goodness. This sounds good, guys. I'm really tired.
Yeah, I was feeling pretty drained earlier this week. I'm a little bit better now, but I do have to save some energy because I'm starting the new set tomorrow. So there's that too.
I'm not looking forward to getting everybody ready for school all week.
So does anyone else have the memories for these old poison creatures?
No, I didn't.
They were flavorful. And that was the idea, I think, with the poison originally. It was an alternate win condition. It wasn't going to come up much. It wasn't good, but it was flavorful. And that's what was sort of nice about it in the early days. Serpent Generator, yeah, lots and lots of snakes could be troublesome for a number of reasons. There wasn't a lot of ways to make lots of creature tokens like there are now either. And paying 4 every turn to make one sounds awful now. At the time, it was, cheaper than the Hive, and those were the sort of main ways you could do it. Later, in Fallen Empires, you got Breeding Pit for Thralls, or Goblin Warrens, perhaps, if you got that going for Goblins, that cost 2 or 3 to make these tokens. But
I just sent Void a message to see if he's around and wants to pop in. Just to kind of see these cards. I think he might like them.
Yeah, who knows?
Oh, we're down to 0.
Well,
maybe the 1 was me the whole time. When we're down to 1,
we fooled ourselves. We're not getting any viewers.
Well, we had viewers. It was going from.
It's fitting, honestly, because poison was a bit of a dud mechanic for years, and that's the years I'm mostly talking about, because that's the years I played. So, and again, breathe a little bit of life into the slivers. Side of it. But the good old saber-toothed cobra, swamp mosquito were there to flush out the pit scorpion and marsh viper, and really the early days were pretty barren for poison strategies. And because the
leech is one, I don't like it.
I know you don't like it, but it's just it's such a weird thing that when this strategy was at its worst, that's when they decide, and it's barely launched, that's when they decide to make an anti-poison card. And I think to this day it might still be the only one. I think it's on the reserved list. They said they're never going to print it again. Okay. So it's just so strange. I find it honestly a little funny that all the nasty scorpions and snakes and rats and things and mosquitoes, and it's the leech, and it's not even a close up on the leech. It's that would be so bothersome, but that's just interesting in my opinion anyway.
Oh well.
Or does anyone here into trying to do poison as a deck theme, or do you think it works better just as a splash? Like I said, with the Tainted Strike, or something like a Skitherix that can come out with haste, or tinkering out a Blightsteel Colossus. Is that more, you think, how the mechanic is better used? Or do you like the whole idea of building a deck around it? Like, and
If anybody who likes to play has any opinions.
Yeah. I just thought these were fun little decks. And they're not, obviously high-end, top-end, anything. They were just, I had lots of these sets kicking around, and I
might be something
found
just
some
to
synergy there.
Just to do a video
But
of
again, Proliferate works good with it
a separate video and put up, because maybe this one wasn't the one for a live stream. There's not a whole lot of interest for it.
It might be the case.
And also, we're earlier than normal, and
yeah. Oh well, it was something to try.
And who knows how many of the subscribers that we got from Brindley's video will be like, ugh, bye. You're not just about cute little videos.
Well, there's that. We try new things. It's a variety channel.
Yeah.
And I guess there's less interest for cards from 2010 as there is from cards from the 90s.
Yeah.
Even though the cards I'm showing from the 90s are pathetic cards that really never took off. So there is that. I do think the Sabertooth Cobra is kind of cool, and I like the idea of what they're going for with the Swamp Mosquito, but honestly, it didn't work very well. even though all the improvements I mentioned of it over a Pit Scorpion, it still didn't work very well. It just wasn't enough to work with here in these early days. They tried to put a bit more attention on it with 4th edition and things, but
how about we put it back on us?
Mildly expanded roster.
Let's flip it.
But that's basically all she wrote.
Okay, I see something and I'm kind of wondering. Green screen.
Ooh, ugly.
Well, okay, but what do you do with the green screen?
You replace whatever's in the background.
Oh, okay.
With whatever set image you want to have back there. But why on
How about
earth
this?
Is it?
Ooh.
Okay. This is weird.
But
you want to have an actual screen back there that's
probably.
Uniform?
Hi guys. We're in the mountains.
Yeah, we're out in Jasper National Park somewhere by the look of it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. All the artifacts around our heads as it tries to compensate for the
we probably need some kind of screen to put behind us if we're going to do this. This is one of my pictures.
It's a neat idea. It could be something we could do with something eventually, but I don't think we're really ready for it at this point. Just playing around with things, like weird filters.
Why not?
I can think of a reason or two why
what does this one do? This one, retouch on. Ooh, you can put retouch on. Does it filter out some stuff on your face? Like if you got some scratches? We're just a little tired. We're just a little
bit.
Just getting silly. I wish I knew how to fix the other thing.
This is a different sort of deck. Maybe I'll dig into that one day. This is more from Avacyn Restored and Innistrad type time period. There's a few in here. Oh, here's something. This could be fun. This could be a neat deck to go through.
This is what I could put the green screen on when I'm walking away to go do something, and people can look at a pretty picture instead.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if it would hide. Some of the
the
messy kitchen or something.
Yeah, maybe.
Screen.
Maybe.
Probably not very well. It's too much.
We took this picture yesterday. I'm trying to point at it, because we took a drive to the mountains. So
classic. Ooh, look at that.
You can't see that.
That's interesting.
That makes the green screen.
That is interesting. If I hold it in front of my red shirt, then you can see it?
Yeah. It's magic.
This is... something else. Anyway, classic Chris Rush Forest.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that
Can
looks.
you tell we're tired?
We're just a little tired. Sleep deprived.
Anyway, so that's not going to work.
Nope,
Showing
let's
you
shut
this
this
deck
off.
at the moment.
Let's shut this off just a second.
Yes.
I'll get the green screen off. Done. Okay, how do you shut it off? Retouch off? None. There we go. That better, guys?
That's better. Well, it's a little bit more normal anyway. I don't know if it's better, but I'm going to flip this around so I can show the cards again and they're not going to be mirrored.
Hold on. Let me click undone here. There you go.
There we go.
Oh my goodness. Somebody coming in at that part would be like, what is going on?
So here's just an old school green deck that I put together just with some fun old green cards because sometimes you just want to play with some beasties. Now here was a card from Judgment, Phantom Centaur. This was quite efficient at the time. And again, another creature that deals with a lot of counters. I think they made a rule not long after this where counters would annihilate each other. So if you play this against something with Infect, and it's, comes into play with 3+1/+1 counters on it, if you ever got a -1/-1 counter on it, it would just remove +1/+1 counters. Like they would just annihilate each other, which I don't like. I mean, I understand why they want to do it to keep the number of counters in play down, but I don't like that because it changes the function of how some certain cards work. Anyway, so this came into play as a 5/3 protection from black. So very heavy. If your opponent's playing mono black and you play this, they're in trouble often. If damage would be dealt to Phantom Centaur, prevent that damage and remove a +1/+1 counter for it. So even though 3 toughness was often a problem for things like Lightning Bolt, if you lightning bolted this to kill it, it wouldn't actually kill it. It would just remove a +1/+1 counter. So this could be quite effective and usually get some licks in. Constant Miss, another nice green card. Fog can often take your opponent by surprise when they're doing something tricky like that green deck where they pump a big creature to get in a massive kill blow and all of a sudden, things aren't going to deal damage this turn. And the fact that you can play it again a second time by sacrificing a land is quite nice. This doesn't provide green, but it has a green ability on it, which is kind of neat. And just being able to tap one of your lands and pay 1 to regenerate a creature, very handy. Not as efficient as the Swarm Yard, which can just tap to regenerate. You don't have to pay. But more general, you don't have to worry about creature types. Naturalize, when they put good old Disenchant into green. This used to be a main deckable card. I mean, especially Disenchant, but even into the Naturalized days, because artifacts and enchantments were just so common and prevalent. Creatures were a little bit less powerful, and people used more of the card types, go figure. Made it more like an actual magical game, rather than just a creature strategy game, in my opinion. I like that better. How long ago were Trainer Glenn's comments? I forget.
That's a while ago.
Okay. Good old crop rotation. There's a fun one. 1 green. By the time you play crop rotation, sacrifice a land. So very much like Tinker. Search your library for a land card and put that land into play. Shuffle your library afterwards. Very nice. Very handy to get your key cards. I use these in that lead line deck that I alluded to, just to make sure that I can go get the Sarah's Sanctum. If I didn't get it in my opening hand, but I have a forest and I have this, guess what? Now I can go get my Sarah's Sanctum. Just handy. Treetop Village. Manlands, often useful. Coming into play tapped is a definite downside, but good old Elfin Grass. 1 green enchantment. Cumulative upkeep of 1 isn't too bad. You can keep it around for a while. Black creatures cannot attack you. Non-black creatures cannot attack you unless their controller pays an additional 2 for each attacking creature. Can be quite handy, especially against mono black, but even if they're not playing black, it still has a useful effect against decks that want to go wide with lots and lots of attackers. What time is it anyway?
It
I
8:36.
should probably wrap up soon. Here's a nice little Ice Age land again with the snow cover. Even though it's not a snow-covered land, it's a forest with snow in the picture, so I like it. It looks sort of like the trees I would expect to see in this region, evergreens and bite-barked birches or poplars or things. Ooh, here's another tree folk that didn't make my tree folk deck. 3 cost, hex-proof, and its power and toughness are each equal to the number of forests you control. So it could very well have been in the forest deck. The tree folk deck. But this came out a little after Morning Tide and Lorwyn, and so my tree folk deck had been sort of benched, so I just threw this in a green deck at the time. Oh, Thrun the Last Troll. This is from the same era as all those nasty infectors. 4/4 for 4. Regenerate. Cannot be countered. Cannot be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. Just a lot of neat stuff, and a troll can be a pain in the butt. So nice to throw one in once in a while. Good old Rancor. There shows you the good old commons used to be a lot more affordable, some of them, especially the popular ones. +2/+2 on trample, and it keeps coming back as long as it was, in play when the creature it's on dies and it didn't get, countered or bounced on you or something. Leatherback Baloth, 4/5 for 3. I couldn't believe these stats when this was printed. Vanilla creatures, 4/5 for 3 is probably not a big deal anymore, but at the time, it was something. Pendelhaven again. This is just such a useful card because basically all these legendary lands, the uncommon ones, just being able to tap for the color, no real downside other than being a non-basic land and being legendary, and then having an extra ability. You could always find use for them, or frequently. Berserks are nice on their own or together. It can be used as creature removal as well as a way to buff your creature for a killing blow. This is the reworked version. I prefer the old unlimited one, but those were harder to find at the time. And got a chance to pick up a couple of these when they came out with, which one was it? From the Vault Exiled, was it? Might have been. Anyway, that's a From the Vault version. Here's a Phantom Centaur, Acid Slime. Enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. You can always find a land pretty well, so being able to kill any of those 3 types meant this was usually straight up card advantage. A 2/2 Death Touch can usually take out something. And then Thornling, take off on the old Changeling, except green, so why not? Just for fun. Lawnmower Elves, always good. Green Sun Zenith. There's a little piece of art, Blast from the Past. Well, not too far in the past, but sort of middling. Finehorn Elves. I like the Ice Age version. Arbor Dryad. I remember when this first came out, a land creature was so unique, You'd never seen that before. There was always manlands, but this is just a creature that counts straight up as a land and vice versa. So this was something new and exciting, and never really took off, I don't think.
Sorry, which one?
The Arbor Dryad. It's a land creature.
Oh, okay, that's kind of weird.
It is kind of weird. Probably why I never took off. More elves. There's another legendary land that just taps for your green or has another ability. This one has to be legendary creatures, though, so that's a bit more restrictive for sure. I prefer the Pendelhaven. Sylvos. From Onslaught. This creature, when it came out, was so pushed in terms of its stats, it was unreal. Normally, for that price, you'd get your 8/8 trample, but instead of having a green regenerate, it would have a pay 4 during your upkeep, or else it's gonna beat you up. So yeah, when I grew up playing with Force of Nature, this thing just looked unreal. Now it's so pathetic. I don't think anyone would consider playing with it anymore, but I still like it. Good old Choke Islands. If you get sick with the blue player, here's a way to mess with them a little. If they don't have a counterspell immediately to get rid of it, that is. Honestly, I've said it before, but this is one of my favorite forest pictures. from Ice Age. I think Ice Age had one of the best sets for land art. Not universally, but a lot of the art was really good. I'm not as big a fan of some of the other land types, but the forests especially. I think they did a good job. Good old regrowth, nice value for later in the game. There's a Vengevine, that's more recent. Anybody remember this card? I think for a while people were excited about it. Whenever you cast a spell, if it is the second creature spell you cast this turn, you may return Vengevine from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this would be a way to give you value in the late game if you got one of those Lawnmower or Finehorn elves. It's not going to do much for you on the board right now. Just save it, and once you get another creature to play with it, you can bring something like that back. Again, Terror Stomper. Compare it to the old Force of Nature. Yeah. Harmonize, green card draw. Why not? Soul's Majesty, another way to draw some cards, but this one card creatures. I heard this guy got restricted as a banned as a commander. You can't use this guy as your commander for some reason. I don't get it. It looks like a perfectly good card to me to use for a game of Elder Dragon Highlander. If you want to be in mono green, it's all about Excel, and this seems to do that just nicely. I don't see why that's a problem. I mean, usually there's lots of ways to deal with creatures. Or anything else you want to accelerate into for green. Chameleon Colossus, Changeling. Sometimes it can be handy to have Changeling in your deck. If all of a sudden your opponent's playing a bunch of Slippers and you want to steal all their abilities on them, why not? Anyway, pretty basic, classic old green stomping deck. I'd like to pull something like that out once in a while just to have fun. Anyway, this was more a discussion really than meant for gameplay with that particular deck we had to work with, but I do like the idea that they tried to work in with poison. I just think it was so slow and clunkily done in those early days again. That I'm surprised it ever got off the ground at all. But eventually they figured, hey, be neat flashback. And even more eventually, they actually did it. I think Infect is what Poison always should have been. It makes it a good mechanic that can actually be played. So
You're not having noodles, it's bedtime.
I think that you still have to pay a thank you for the idea that came early on. Even if the actual application wasn't good, it really set up the idea for once they came up with a better idea for how to implement it. I think it owes a lot of inspiration to these early days.
Yeah, we'll get your medicine.
Anyway, thanks for coming out. Those of you who did, or who want to check it out later.
Or if you're rewatching.
We're not going to keep this one dragging on. But,
should we put the mountains back on?
Nah.
Oh my goodness. So Thursday is the next planned stream. I don't know if I'm going to do it in the middle of the day or if I'll wait till you get home.
It's up to you.
But I'm thinking of doing the new tins. What's that set called? The ones with the 5 packs in them. Anyways, they've got the bigger tins.
We actually found some.
Yeah.
Actually, they weren't too hard to find. They didn't get snapped up as badly by scalpers as some things.
But
they do have some surging sparks in them from what I hear. So that's nice.
We could just go ahead and open the mini tins.
You could.
But you want to be there for those times.
I would rather be there for that, honestly. But
I could,
as you wish, as you like.
So much to do, so much to think about. We had lots to do before. Oh my goodness, Abram's going to be going to Romania in less than a month.
Yeah, what's going on? Anyway,
all right, guys.
Bid you adieu.
Thank you for watching, for hanging out. For those of you who are still here,
If
One
any
of which
you
maybe
have
me.
any Magic the Gathering topics that you would like to see me address, particularly stuff from the earlier days, because that's what I
Leave in the
know better.
comments.
I wouldn't mind some suggestions, to be
Mhm.
honest.
Yeah.
You know, digging around, finding things. I never, you know what? I remember Serpent Generators. I never bothered to get one. That's, it's an interesting card. Being able to generate tokens can be useful, but it was just so slow. You usually could find something better to do. And yeah, I just never bothered to get a Serpent Generator, so I don't have one to show you. But it's easy enough to find. If you, same thing with those Crypt Cobras. I
Somebody's
mentioned, the
making
giant
some
ones.
noise.
Yeah, the kids haven't
Um,
settled quite yet, have they?
No, it's time for them to get to bed, and I'm just exhausted.
Yeah.
Got to make sure we got laundry switched and stuff, so Lucas has clothes for tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, have a good day or night or whatever it is when you watch
Bye
this,
for now,
because I think more
guys.
people are going to watch it later if they watch it at
Yeah.
all. So, cheerio.
Have a good night. See you soon. Hey, there's you're still here. You can show them those cards really quick that you're thinking you might
just
like.
the old school poison mechanic. I was going through the Pit Scorpion. There's a Italian Legends one. When they first introduced poison, the cards were so wonky, it was really hard to make a go of them. There's a Marsh Viper from the Dark, the 4th edition. Again, they put them into the 4th edition to try to make them more accessible, but it didn't help. There's the Leeches. They made a card to counter the strategy when there were only 3 cards in existence that used poison at all, and they weren't that good.
He remembers that art.
Yeah. Swamp Mosquitoes. Both arts, same card. It was an improvement. It was definitely an improvement. Not having to deal combat damage, being evasive, being cheaper. It just wasn't good enough to really tip the scales, or there weren't enough cards to work with. Sabertooth
Very
Cobra.
nice, very dark.
Sabertooth Cobra that came out in Mirage. Again, like the Marsh Viper, a chance to deal 2 poison counters, at least potentially. I remember people trying. Didn't work out too well, usually. And then a decade later, when they decided to do a flashback to it, they gave Slivers the ability to share a poisonous ability. And that actually, you could do something with.
Marsh Viper was good art.
You could do something with the Virulent Sliver, but all the earlier stuff, yeah, it was a cool theme. It was a neat, flavorful idea. But the implementation with how to actually get these things to work, it was just too much headache and pieces you needed to pull in to actually get them to be functional, that it just wasn't worth it. So it just never became a really viable option. I know 1 or 2 people who tried. I may have tried myself very briefly, but it just, there wasn't enough to work with. And the implementation wasn't strong enough at that time. So, but yeah, it was an interesting time in the game as they were putting new ideas out there, new concepts, and some of it stuck, some of it really didn't. And but it was nice to see that they came back to it and did do it, I think, much better later when they changed it to Infect. I think that made it a lot stronger of an option. Anyway, I've already said that 3 times now, so reinforcing what I've already said.
Came in, so we had to
so
give a recap.
There's the quick summary. The expansion, The Dark, was when I actually started playing. Nice. The Dark was around, but getting hard to find when I started playing. But I knew people who had some. So
he's here. I've got to.
During the revised era, pre-Gen 4. Yeah, I'd started playing when 4th edition and Ice Age were both out. And so the first set that released after I started playing was Homelands.
Of course.
So, there you go.
Alrighty. Well, I think we're gonna call it a night. And I'm tired. I'm exhausted, and it's only like 10 to 9.
Yeah.
So
I gotta get up even earlier than I used to. So
yeah,
I gotta get to bed. Anyway, thanks for coming.
Bed, so
and
have a good night.
Have a good night.
We'll see you soon. Yeah, I wasn't really gonna try and rate anybody because there's only a few people. I mean, I could, but
I think we can skip it tonight.
But yeah.
Yeah. So good night.
Yeah, have a good night. You want to stop in? It's members mods giveaway. Okay, yeah. I might. I don't know. I'm just really tired. Gotta get some kids to bed.
Don't cats always act weird? I think that's pretty normal for cats. Isn't
I
it?
had a pretty awesome cat though. Charlie was
I'm
awesome.
not saying there aren't some awesome cats. I'm just
Although
saying
he had his weird
they,
moments.
they tend to be strange as sort of normal.
Well, he got out once, and
from my experience.
Well, okay. When my parents moved to the new house, he got out and he tried to find his way to the old place or something, but he got like sunstroke or something, and he came back and he was very, very red, and he was like walking sideways towards my mom, and she got creeped out because he was acting weird, and it was because he had sunstroke.
That's understandable in my thinking.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
But he was a good cat. I miss Charlie. Anyways.
Good night.
Good night. I can't put words together anymore, so bye for now.
Bye for now.
If we don't see you before Thursday, we'll see you Thursday. She was chewing on the door on the cupboard. Huh. Fun.
Something in there that caught her attention, I guess. Or smelled good.
Okay. Have a good night. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Bye.